Okay, so we've all seen these videos where somebody goes into the police station and wants to get a report so they can turn in an officer. And in many of those videos, matter of fact, in most of them, the person who is trying to get the complaint form so that they can fill it out, bring it in, and turn it in, um, they're intimidated by more than one officer. The officers, when they make a ring around you or they all stand in between you and the door, that's an intimidation tactic. There's no need for 8 officers to show up for you to get a fucking complaint form. There's no need for it. It's not necessary. Now, they've got all sorts of other tricks that they use when you try to turn them in. Like, for example, in my situation, the protection order shit, I've got to be allowed to go in there and actually turn that shit in and not be threatened, harassed, or intimidated for trying to turn it in. We've seen how, in many of these cases, the officers threaten to arrest the person who all they want is a complaint form. That's it. They're not required to do any of the crap that the cops are telling them. All of these officers, they all know that what they're doing is intimidation. That's what they're trained to do. They're trained to intimidate you. Now, for somebody who has sensory processing issues, what they're doing is creating a very unsafe space for you. And then your words don't come out right. Meanwhile, they want you to just tell them about what their officer did. And they're going to tell you that what the officer did is not illegal every time. Well, that's not illegal. That's, in most of these cases, yes, what they're doing is illegal. What the officers have done is illegal. I just woke up. I got the morning a lot of times you notice that the officers do talk nice. Not every time. Sometimes they want to do the good cop, bad cop thing. Or they'll talk nicely to you, but they're spouting ignorance at you. In reality, it's deflecting. They're trying to ask questions that are, well, not required for you to answer in order to get the complaint form. Being told it's got to be on official police parchment is a horrible thing. A lot of people that wrote stuff down, they didn't know who to turn it into, and neither did I. And that's got a lot to do with the fact that the cops aren't going to tell you how to turn them in. They're going to try to deter you from turning them in by whatever means necessary. In a lot of these situations, people are actually arrested for trying to turn in a cop. In one of those videos, they were trying to charge the guy with making a false report. He hadn't even gotten the report. He was there for over an hour, and he didn't even get the report. He didn't even get a piece of paper to fill out. That's all he was there for. You're not required to tell the police what it's about. You can fill it out and you can take it in. Now, you see, when I try to explain what's going on, I deal with a lot of that deflection crap. Now, you can see in the videos where there's somebody else with me. For example, when I went in with Laura Nelson, well, we didn't have to deal with a whole lot of that deflection. When Molly Smith went in with me, also didn't have to deal with a whole lot of that deflection. What I needed to do was show evidence, and writing report after report after report Where are these reports going? Filling out protection orders. Where are these protection orders going? Turning them into Scott DaCosta obviously did not go anywhere. And I do have a lot of people's phone numbers still. When I look over in my pictures, there's this little Windows thing over on the very beginning. It says start, and you go and you click on it, and you click on your pictures option. And you go through and you've got all these people's phone numbers, all these people that I've dealt with. Their phone numbers are all over my stuff. Let's see, for example, oh, that's Laura Nelson. Laura Nelson in Facebook, not in screenshots from the telephone. Oh, here's Rochelle Shelley Campbell, and it's from her screenshots as well in Messenger. Let's see. All right. Tinkerbell Ariel. It's got her phone number up at the top, and Tinkerbell was not a big major part of this, or a big major issue, or a harasser, or one of those people threatening me or anything. Lisette Brown, I've got her phone number too. And of course, the messages between her and I. People are allowed to be assholes to me. They're allowed to threaten and harass and intimidate me. They're allowed to assault me. And when I try to turn it in, I have to turn it in to officers who I have previously tried to turn in and been straight up stonewalled, threatened, harassed, intimidated, and assaulted. And these officers get away with it by dragging me off. Not literally dragging me off. In the situation with Scott Costa on the 16th of December of 2020, well, oh, here's Shannon Alvarado, and it's got her phone number as well. Anyway, back in 2020, December 16th, when I was trying to turn in Scott Costa, they've pulled this tactic repeatedly, where when I try to turn them in, they either arrest me, they tell me that they can't, they tell me that it's someone else's job. There is always some excuse that they can't do their job. Now, for me, many of the things that were used to pretend I was threatening harm against people, well, I had a gun, a squirt gun with jalapeno juice in it. The reason for that is because it was cheaper than getting a pepper spray. Now, I got that thing because people kept on assaulting me over and over, and I cannot physically defend myself. Now, then, when you're incarcerated and they assault you, when you want to turn them in, they send you to a nuthatch. When they sent me to Scotts Bluff, 5th floor, they wouldn't release me to go make a police report against them or against the police. And that was Dr. Scanlon. This is a common tactic as well, having you taken to a behavioral health unit or institution or jail, and the hospitals work closely with them. When you try to turn in the hospital or you try to get your hospital paperwork, if you don't have the ability to record it, you're screwed. They can tell you all sorts of stuff that is not true. For me, I needed a steady address, but I also needed to be able to work in that environment. There are a lot of environments like Brett Roloff's. God, I was fucking happy to be out of there. spent my birthday on a bus. And guess what happened while I was on the bus? Alicia Bollinger got into a high-speed chase with her dad and then disappeared. Everything was done to prevent me from turning in my predators. Everything. Including threats, harassment, intimidation. This is not okay. With the police not taking a report from me, and if they do, where do they put it? What are they doing with my police reports? And a lot of these, they say that you can fill out the report, but you have to fill it out there, and then you have to go through the county attorney to get a copy of it. Well, in a lot of these cases, these guys are having to go in and try to get this stuff, and they're getting stonewalled by everybody in the office. Where's their copy? That's why it's important to be able to take it home so that you can make a copy. When you're incarcerated, they'll deny you the right to make copies of your court stuff and tell you that it's not court related. It absolutely is. One of the things about locking you up on bogus charges is that then they say, well, we can't take a report from you as long as you have charges. Whoa, hold on a second. That is not true. If I have charges brought against me by Officer Waylon Lolatai after he assaulted me, that needs to be fucking brought out in court. But I didn't have anyone to actually go in with me to make police reports or turn them in. I had to go in by myself every time. Molly Smith was the first person to actually go in with me so that I could try to turn something in. Molly Smith is a witness to the fact that I did that. Now, the fact that those video files are corrupted, they weren't corrupted before Sheridan Police Department got a hold of my computer. They had my stuff and they didn't enter it in as evidence, they just entered it in as property. Now, with these guys taking things out of context, pulling little bits and pieces that they can, case in point, let's talk about my court date. Leslie Snell intentionally went out of her way to play victim in a video that is obviously about how I am against killing. Against it. But she used it out of context, and context is important. That is very clearly stated that the context is important. Now then, there's like Robert Warnick, for example. Now there's the video with Chris Stegeman when he gives me the axe. What did I use the axe for? Did I go chasing people through town with an axe? No. Is there anybody in town after I got that axe, or even before, who was killed with an axe? No. No, there wasn't. Is there any history of me chasing people with an axe? No, there's not. Is there any history of me threatening people with an axe? No, there's not. With me not having a vehicle at the time, I had to carry that thing wherever I was using it. The guy I'm staying with here, he used that axe. We used it in his backyard. It's a tool. Owning and possessing a tool is not against the law. Now, the fact that I used that axe also at Stegeman's, and yes, Stegeman is the one that gave it to me, it shows that these guys are grasping at straws, any excuse that they can use to try to make it okay that they broke the law. Robert Warnick should never have threatened, harassed, or intimidated me. Cody Selhorst never should have threatened, harassed, or intimidated me. And these officers should have taken my reports instead of writing down, well, that I just needed to talk. No, I didn't just need to talk. I needed them to do their fucking jobs. Holy fucking Christ. These officers have done everything that they can to stonewall me, using the courts now to threaten, harass, and intimidate me, and to deprive me of resources. This is not okay. But these are their tactics. These are the tactics that they are taught. They're taught how to break the law, straight up. And if you have to break the law to turn them in, there is something fucked up about this system. All I needed before Natalie was killed was somebody to go in with me so that the cops would take it fucking seriously. After Natalie was killed, those officers threatened, harassed, and intimidated not just me, but Candace Bondurant. That was a fucked up situation. And who is it that had to pay the consequences for that? Me. That's right. I was doing the right thing by making that 911 call. The right thing. Now, officers harass, threaten, and intimidate the homeless every day just for existing. Now, you see those cop videos where they want to come in and put their foot in the door. They don't have the right to do that. They are trespassing at that point. You do have the right to close your door. They do not have the right to assault you for closing the door, but that is a stonewalling tactic. That is a stall tactic. The longer they can stall you out from turning them in, the more likely they are to be able to get rid of body camera evidence. Now, why is it that on my court paperwork, in all three of the criminal cases, it's all three people I was trying to turn in, plus trying to turn in Leslie Snell? Now, being stonewalled by the Nebraska State Patrol, where they're going to pretend, but then they're not even pretending. Their demeanor and the things that they're saying are letting me know that they're not going to investigate. They're doing everything that they can not to. If they can drag it out for 3 goddamn years, the body camera evidence is fucking gone. In this case, Scott DaCosta lost the body cam evidence of, well, whatever the fuck they wanted to charge me with. I was assaulted by Scott DaCosta and State Trooper Lassen for trying to turn in Scott DaCosta, something which should have been done in 2018. And I was illegally prevented from doing so. Now, they like to lie to you a lot, too. They like to tell you that, well, their protocol is different from something that it's actually supposed to be according to the law. So why are we teaching police tactics that are against the law? Why are they being taught that? Well, that's called tricks of the trade. So you start to learn little tricks from your other officers, especially the older officers, for how to threaten, harass, and intimidate people for trying to turn you in. And they threaten, harass, and intimidate people, period. We've all seen these videos. People who go in by themselves and record it. That's why you need somebody to go in with you. That's why you need to go in and record it as well. With me not being able to do that at the beginning and trying my best to be able to do that, people keep wanting to tell me to let it go. No, if you let them go, they do it again to someone else. That's the problem with predators. Once they've gotten away with it, they start getting a big head and thinking that it's okay. And it's not okay. It's like that little boy on the playground that hits your daughter. And you tell your daughter he only does it because he likes her. Well, now you're teaching her that abuse is love. And you're also teaching him that it's okay to hit somebody. That's not okay. What Natalie Bollinger and her family did, and her friends before she was killed, is not okay. It is highly illegal. And they did it across multiple jurisdictions. Now, this website that they have for the FBI for you to be able to turn this in, there's nowhere for you to put evidence. That's if you're able to get to the site, and it wants to kick you out if it allows you in at all. You get on there, you scroll down a little bit, and then it kicks you out of the website. How the fuck does that work? And they keep doing these things. And people say, Sean, you need to let it go, or you need to play the system, or so on and so forth. Well, here's the thing, is that the police are playing the system. They know how to play the system. They've been doing it for years. All of these cops know exactly what they're doing when they're intimidating you and threatening you and harassing you. They know exactly what they are doing. Now, with Natalie Bollinger and her friends and family harassing me before she was killed, that needed to stop. They needed to leave me alone. These people were committing crimes, and I'm told I need to move on, move on, move on. That's what you tell homeless people. They need to move on. For a vulnerable adult having to turn that shit in, it's a very scary situation. They say, well, we didn't do anything wrong. He's mentally ill. So they're not addressing what it is that they did wrong. They're projecting it onto me using the mentally ill tag to discredit me. Or in the case of William Barr, and many officers take you to hospitals for this, they'll take you to the hospital and say that you're on drugs or say that you're schizophrenic. And the hospital nurse writes down schizophrenia on your paperwork. Now, you have not been diagnosed with schizophrenia by a doctor. You've been diagnosed by Scott DaCosta. And that is highly immoral and highly illegal. And that's what he kept on trying to do, him and his deputies, in order to justify the crimes that they committed. That's not okay. That is immoral and it is illegal. Now, of course, there should be body camera evidence in Garden County, body cameras in Dual County, body cameras in Scotts Bluff, but there's not. They turn them off. Or in the case of Scotts Bluff, they don't even have them. In the case of the prison, they don't even have them. These things need to be recorded. Scott DaCosta telling these people that I'm schizophrenic, I was treated like hell. I was repeatedly assaulted over and over and over again in the jails, denied my rights over and over and over again in the jails. Being blown off when I try to make reports, being prevented from legal materials. Meanwhile, what was I convicted of? Nothing. Nothing. They thought if I was in there long enough, being treated the way that I was, that I would eventually give up. Well, fuck no. These officers are breaking the law. Leslie Snell broke the law. Judge Weimer broke the law. Context is important. Now, one of the things that I had to do in the jails, they let you write it down. You write it down, but you don't have access to all of the information that you need. Like, example, let's take a look at one of these here pictures that I got. Let's see. April of 2018 is the situation with Ted Bollinger. Him getting on Alicia Bollinger's account while I was here in Chapel, Nebraska, and creating a very clear safety risk and safety issue for somebody that I do care about. I do care about Alicia Bollinger. She's just a really fucked up person. But having access to this right here, which you don't have access to in jail, having access to this lets me know when it happened. Let's see. These pictures were taken at 5:08 a.m. If that lets you know anything about how long the situation went on. I've got pictures of Graham here too. Let's see. When did it start? Um, Here's one of them is at 1:23 a.m. We'll go back further. I mean, that's the thing, is that it went on for hours, hours and hours of Ted Bollinger giving me no indication that Alicia was okay. Well, here's this Jody Aiden Wright Perry lady. Um, Here's stuff with Rose, stuff with Dalton, stuff with this guy Orlando. I mean, that's the thing. All these people want to judge me for a situation that didn't even happen. I got Lanny Engelein's number here too. Amanda Engeline as well. I've got all their phone numbers. Their phone numbers are all here. And I have been kind enough not to release those numbers to the public. A lot of these people did fucked up shit because they didn't get what they wanted. Their control issues were the issue. They wanted me to do things their way, but they're not willing to look at the information. They're not willing to make any efforts to understand the situation. They just want to give me advice. And when you got two people that are offering to help you, neither one of them is listening to what you're saying, and both of them have conflicting advice. So then you need their help. So you are taking their advice despite the fact that their advice is fucking useless because they've never been in that situation. That's the worst issue with listening to pretty white girls. When you got two pretty white girls who think that they're right because they're pretty white girls and they're not agreeing on the color of shit, well, you end up with a very complicated situation. Now, Leslie Snell went out of her way to play victim as if I was threatening her or her family, which is not the case. Same thing with William Barr. These people want to pretend that I was threatening their families, and absolutely not. Now, by denying me the right to even go to court, these people automatically win. When there is a situation where they're claiming that you did something that you didn't, and you have evidence that those crimes were committed actually against you, and you are prevented from showing that, denied the right to show that, it is a major issue. These web sleuth groups intentionally went out of their way to ignore actual evidence. They just want to recycle the same bullshit story. Let's see, Louisville Police in Court. That's where I had to go with Mark Townsend went with me. Mark Townsend, he also goes by Chaos. He went to a lot of different places with me. And then, according to him, he got hit in the head with a flashlight for looking like his brother Clyde, which don't make no sense to me because Mark Townsend is like 5'4", 5'6" maybe, and Clyde is easily 6 foot tall. They don't look alike. And I get that there's some of you racist assholes who think that all black people look the same. Well, that's just stupid. Now, with these people, I've tried to turn them in multiple times, and who do you turn them into? Now, after all this time, they have allowed my predators to get away. They have allowed my predators to play victim over and over and over again. But it is to the police officers' benefit to let these child molesters and rapists get away because these officers didn't do their jobs to begin with, and they could get into a lot of trouble for it. Without an attorney, you get stonewalled when you're trying to get the evidence, when you're trying to get the body cameras, things of that nature. And there's a lot of tactics that they use, like the situation with Leslie Snell. I did not break the law in that situation. Leslie Snell did. But for me, not even being able to go to the courthouse and having a safety issue with the Dual County Courthouse, the whole building. All right, these people all work together. They're not going to stand up to the sheriff, and many of them are friends with the guy. He's still crooked. But people like Paulie Olson are protecting the sheriff and his deputies. There isn't enough time to do this. Now, with all these people telling me that they've got overwhelming caseloads, well, obviously, I will not be represented because they have overwhelming caseloads. The police know this. If the police arrest 50 homeless people this week, there's a public pretender who's got to pick up all those cases. How are they going to be able to actually handle all those cases? How are they going to be able to actually represent their client? And then there's the fact that if you get a public pretender, the public pretender tells you they're not even allowed to do their fucking job. Their hands are tied. Their hands are tied. I might sneeze. Now, we've seen in many, many court cases where the things that the public pretenders are saying that they can't do, a real lawyer is allowed to do those things. Why can't a public pretender do those things? If a real lawyer is allowed to do those things, well, then a public pretender should be allowed to do those things as well. Otherwise, they're cutting off your ability to have an actual legal defense. You're having somebody who's showing up for a fucking paycheck where lives are at stake. And hundreds of thousands of your taxpayer dollars. Scott DaCosta spent a lot of taxpayer dollars to have me locked up. You think people are happy about that? Probably. Well, you guys say that you shouldn't care what other people think, but your opinions do matter. Your opinions of the homeless are reflected in the laws that are being broken by these officers and by these courts. When you go in and they say, oh, well, we don't have those, you need to tell me about it. No, I don't need to tell you about it. See, that's the thing about those cops. They want to tell you that you can't make an oral report when you're trying to make an oral report. You have to write it down. But then when you try to turn in an officer, they won't let you write it down. They want you to make an oral report. And then they say, well, You needed to write it down. Why didn't you write it down? Why didn't you fill out this paperwork? Why didn't That's what I was trying to do. That's what I was trying to do. Now, if you have somebody there with you when you hand in that report, if you have someone there with you and they lose that report, then you have a witness to that situation. There's a lot of people who said, well, I don't know nothing, that were a part of this situation. There's a lot of people who want to sidestep it entirely. That's not okay. I have to deal with a lot of morons. A lot of people who want to say, well, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a lawyer. It doesn't matter if you're a lawyer or you are a witness. With my technological skills, I've had to try to send this stuff out and get absolutely nowhere because there's no witnesses present. When I turn in paperwork to Scott DaCosta, well, that should have gone to the county clerk, to the clerk of the courts. Now, it would have been nice to know that the first time around. Now, even if I make copies of it so that I have copies and then I turn it into the sheriff's department, what's to stop the sheriff from throwing it away? What's to stop the clerk of the courts from throwing it away? I mean, they keep telling me conflicting stuff about how I can get copies of that. Why is it that it didn't go anywhere? Why is it that I was never contacted? These are important questions to ask. Why is it that between 2018 and when I was assaulted by Scott DaCosta on December 16th of 2020, why is it that all that time Nebraska State Patrol made zero effort to investigate the crimes against me? Why is it that it took that long for me to get the names of Investigator Woods and Sergeant Jones? Why is it that Sergeant Jones did not call me from a non-restricted number? Because that's what they claim, calling me from restricted numbers. The cops in this town have called me on restricted numbers. How is that okay? Somebody like me who's dealing with a lot of that harassment, what am I supposed to do? When I can't tell one number from another, I can't tell a harasser's number from a police officer's number because they all say restricted. That is a very clear safety issue there. Now, these guys have taken advantage of my technical inabilities, and I told them that I don't have the ability to do this technically, that I do need help with it. There's the people that I'm supposed to go to for help. There's plenty of people that I have paid a crap ton of money to teach me, to show me how to do these things, and it didn't go anywhere. They didn't teach me. They spent the money on partying. How is that okay? And all of this comes together to allow officers to get away with the crimes that they commit repeatedly. Someone in person. That is not difficult to understand. With Miss Peaches on the 29th of December of 2017, she could have gone in with me, and she needed to go in with me for my safety. So those officers couldn't pull the tricks that they were pulling. Officers across the state of Colorado took part in the threats, harassment, and intimidation. You goddamn right I speak up. It's not my fault that Candace Bondurant's a coward and a fucking moron.